the evening of November the 5th, 1940, and a group of British ships are racing across the Atlantic to resupply Britain. In the middle of the convoy is a single armed merchant cruiser, the HMS Jervis Bay. A call comes over the bridge.
Unidentified ship spotted. Hard to port.
Captain Edward Fegen immediately orders the Jervis Bay to turn towards the ship and out of the center of the convoy. He orders a challenge signal to be flashed across the waves.
Send the code.
Seconds pass as they wait for the ship to respond. But the mystery vessel sends back the exact same challenge message. The British know that no friendly ship would answer in that way. It must be the Germans.
Sound action stations.
Alarms ring out across the Jervis Bay as men rush to their posts, manning guns and preparing the ship for battle. Back on the bridge, Fegen's blood runs cold as he realizes what he's looking at.
It's a pocket battleship.
It's HMS Admiral Scheer, one of Germany's most formidable warships. She's bristling with guns and bears enough firepower to devastate the convoy. HMS Jervis Bay is no match for a pocket battleship. A direct engagement will only end one way. But if he can just keep the Scheer from getting close to the convoy, then maybe he can buy time for them to escape.
Get the convoy away. Send up the flares and lay down the smoke.
Aye, sir.
The evening room is illuminated by a burning red glow as Jervis Bay launches her signal flares high into the sky. The merchant ships break out of their columns and begin turning to starboard. The captains strain the engines and rudders to the limits as they work hard to avoid collision with one another. Aboard Jervis Bay, sailors throw smoke floats into the water, and huge clouds of grey smoke billow into the air. In seconds, the convoy disappears behind the haze. Fegen knows what he has to do.
Turn to starboard. Make full speed and close the distance.
HMS Jervis Bay charges directly towards the enemy, drawing all attention to herself. 10 nautical miles away, on the Scheer, Captain Theodor Krancke and his ship power forward to close the distance with the seemingly defenseless convoy when a message comes in.
Kapitän, eines der Handelsschiffe greift an. Es sieht aus wie ein Dampfliner.
Haben die überhaupt Waffen?
Wenn ja, dann sind sie nicht so groß wie unsere, Herr Kapitän.
Hard backboard.
Krancke orders a turn to port, bringing the ship's broadside to bear. On HMS Jervis Bay, Captain Fegen can see his enemy lining up the first salvo. Confident the merchant ships are now hidden from German guns, Fegen gives the order.
Open fire!
At the forward gun, able seaman Sam Patience rams a shell into the breach, but the enemy's still not in range of the Jervis Bay's puny 6-inch guns. Sam watches on the horizon, and the thunder of Admiral Scheer's 11-inch guns tears across the sky. It takes more than 20 seconds for the shells to come whistling down to sea, splashing home in front of their bow and kicking up huge columns of water. The German gunners are finding their target, and the Scheer immediately fires off a second salvo with an enormous roar. Huge columns of spray are kicked up as rounds fall close behind.
They've got us bracketed!
Fire!
The massive guns fire their third salvo. And this time, it's a direct hit. The bridge is torn apart by a mighty explosion. Fegen reaches down to pick himself off the floor, but the pain in his shoulder is excruciating. It's at this point he realizes his arm is missing. But despite losing a limb, he's determined to fight on, and he descends painfully down to the deck, clinging to another sailor for support. Shells continue to land every few seconds, and soon the entire superstructure begins to crumble under the repeated explosions. An incoming round even blasts away the white ensign flying from the main mast. The crew look up as shards of wood and glowing embers cascade down to the deck, and the tattered white flag flutters down. But the British crew stay calm. They've drilled for this situation, and now the training takes over. Firefighting teams battle the raging blaze with hoses. Surviving gunners stay at their posts. A sailor dashes past and climbs up the shattered mast with the help of a crewmate and nails up a fresh white ensign. There's a rousing cheer from the surviving British crewmen. Fegen fights through the searing pain as he considers his next move.
Hold your positions! They're lining up another salvo!
He sees that the Scheer has begun firing its secondary 6-inch guns at the fleeing merchant ships. Jervis Bay's continued resistance is the only thing stopping the German ship from unleashing its main guns on the convoy. Fegen pulls himself to his feet. With the bridge destroyed, he's got to get to the rear control compartment. From there, he can steer the ship and issue orders. His body's close to failing, but he moves as fast as he can, supported by a crewmate. Meanwhile, Sam and his team are firing off their weapon as rapidly as they can. He rams another round home and waits for the blast. The shell arcs away, and Sam watches as it plunges harmlessly into the water. The Scheer remains untouched.
We might as well be throwing spuds.
They may not be inflicting any damage, but they know that every round keeps Scheer from closing in, buying precious time for the convoy to escape. Sam readies himself to send another round downrange, but suddenly, he's blown off his feet by an enormous, shuddering blast. He feels a sharp stabbing pain and slams down onto the deck. Then his world goes black. On the Scheer, Captain Krancke watches the fires burn across Jervis Bay. It's still blocking his most direct route to the merchant ships, and despite the damage, a single 6-inch gun keeps firing in his direction. The British shells do no harm, but the risk of a lucky hit plays on his mind, so he can't just sail past. Neither does he have the time to bypass her.
Wenn dieses Schiff sich nicht ergibt, muss es vernichtet werden.
Sam comes round slowly, waking up to the chaos of battle. Through fogged eyes, he watches as the captain slowly makes his way along the deck to the rear control compartment. If Fegen gets there, he'll be able to steer the ship and issue orders. Maybe he can get them out of this. Sam watches and shouts encouragement.
Come on, sir!
Fegen finally approaches his destination as a German shell flies in. The room is blasted apart. Sam braces himself against the force of the blast and looks on in horror as Fegen disappears into a whirl of flames and shrapnel. Sam clings to the rail as the smoke clears and shapes start to emerge from the gloom. Peering through the swirling battle, he finally sees the body of his captain lying motionless. The next salvo comes in seconds, striking home and tearing into the ship. Flames burst up from below decks, inflicting the final crippling blow. Jervis Bay shudders, lurches, and then begins to list as water rushes into the hull.
Abandon ship!
All around, sailors put on their lifebelts and begin evacuating. Dazed and injured, Sam suddenly finds himself alone. All the lifeboats have been deployed. His only option is to jump. He stares down into the icy water. Like many others on board, he can't swim.
Gotta get out of here.
But then he spots one last lifebuoy sitting in its case. Bracing through the pain, he limps across the deck and hurls himself at the buoy. He pulls at the case, straining every muscle, but the buoy just won't budge. Sam can feel the ship shifting beneath him. Every second brings him closer to an icy grave. He musters all his strength and pulls again. And this time, the buoy comes free. Sam jumps. He crashes down into the water, breaking through the surface and feeling the air knocked out from his lungs. He fights with all his strength, kicking and pulling himself until he reaches the surface, gasping and coughing. He takes a quick look at the sinking Jervis Bay, and he's horrified to see there are still men on board who can't swim and won't risk jumping in. He's no idea where to go. Perhaps he can find one of the lifeboats. already shivering, he begins paddling away into the night. On the bridge of the Scheer, Captain Krancke can't help but admire the sacrifice of the enemy crew.
Gott weiß, diese Männer haben sich ihr Land verdient gemacht.
But now he can start the pursuit. Peering into the dark, he spots SS Rangitiki, a large transport ship steaming away in the distance. He sets course and begins the hunt.
Hart Steuerbord. Feuer auf den dicksten Brocken.
Rangitiki twists and turns, changing course to try and avoid the German warship. But the Scheer launches a salvo and scores a direct hit on the ship's stern. Rangitiki is badly hit and trailing columns of black smoke. Krancke's confident that he's bagged his second kill of the evening, but then watches in frustration as the massive ship disappears into a smokescreen. Night falls, and a few miles away, Sam struggles in the freezing water. His injuries are agonizing, and the cold stabs him like 1,000 tiny needles. He doesn't know how much longer he can keep this up. But then, he spots a small shape in the dark, and hears familiar voices drifting across the waves. There are men in a lifeboat, looking for survivors. He paddles himself closer, fighting through the waves. Using the last of his energy, he drags himself up into the boat. Sam collapses exhausted among the feet of his fellow sailors, and the men huddle together for a long, cold